know your wife's, know your children's, your parents, your siblings, your friends' love languages. And quite often, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of time to show how much you mean to them and how much they mean to you, to show that I love you, that I care about you, that I want to be with you, that I'm happy that I'm your husband. I'm happy that I'm your father. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's not about buying gifts.
Hi, my name is Evan Herrman, and I'm documenting my journey on becoming the best version of myself while learning how to be an entrepreneur and developing the successful habits that are necessary to get and keep me there. If you want to come alongside of me and make this journey together, we'll be listening and learning from some of the world's greatest mentors in the areas that matter most: faith, family, finances, friendship, fitness, and fun. So join me on the Whole Person Podcast. I'm so excited to have the guest that we have today. His name is Ed DeCosta. He is one of the most engaging executive coaches throughout the leadership of our time, who speaks on many different aspects of leadership, which results in companies of all sizes that seek out advice and information from him. Ed is an author of several books, dynamic speaker who shared the stages with the likes of John Maxwell, Darren Hardy, Christian Simpson, Les Brown, Nick Vujicic, and so many others. Ed, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Evan. It's delightful to be with you and your audience today. I appreciate it.
Well, we are so glad you're here. And Ed, I wanted to bring you on the show because you talk about work-life balance like no one I've ever heard talk about before. And that is an area of my life that I struggle with, and from people I talk to or around me also struggle with. So just for example, like I am a real estate agent and I work from home. Mm-hmm. I can get a lot done, but also it really bleeds over into creating hard boundaries when it comes to family time or other areas of life, because they're so intertwined like spaghetti. I can't just pack up and leave my office because my house is my office. I want to get better at that. I want to get better at drawing hard lines in other areas where it's financially beneficial or physically beneficial, or other relationships where I can create this balance in between all areas of my life. And so I wanted to bring you on and just kind of pick your brain about that subject.
Yeah, it's a powerful subject, and there's a million and one ways to look at it. But work-life balance, which is a myth, is one common way that people describe, like time management. That's a myth as well.
Right. Multitasking, a myth.
Multitasking is a myth unless you want to do many things half-assed simultaneously.
Right.
But it's really about productivity, right? How can you be most effective? How can you get the most done in the amount of time that you have, in a given day, a given week, month, or a given lifetime? And so, this desire to be all you can be on the work side, so to speak, and then flip the script to your personal side and be all that you can be on that side as well. I mean, it's a wonderful notion. It's a cool idea. But there's a whole lot more to it than just, looking for that never quite reachable balance.
Right.
Justice to give just enough to your work and just enough to your family and faith and fitness and all the other elements that are not work, and create that 50-50 blend if that's what you desire. Right. So it's you're not alone, my friend. You're not alone at all.
When I look at, faith, family, finances, friendship, fitness, and fun, I have this idea of a tire, and each segment of those are inflated at different levels based off of what I'm able to get it. And, some are higher and some are lower, which creates for a really bumpy ride. And I'm trying to figure out how to blend both extremes to just get a more well-rounded hire, because there's so many things that compete for my attention at work. There's so many things that compete for my attention at my house. And one of them is entertainment. It's the phone, it's the TV, and I want to be able to be fully involved and vested into what's currently going on in my household. And I have a hard time doing that. So what advice, and there's two questions there. What advice would you give to help me become more present in what I'm currently doing, I guess, on my family side, and not allow things to pull me? And you can hit any of those subjects of faith, family, finances. But then also the other question to that, when it comes to living a life of balance, was, well, actually just start with the first one, because I'm losing my thought process here.
Sure. So there are a million directions that we could go, but based upon the conversations that you and I've had, including this one, I'm glad that you use the notion of a wheel or a tire.
I got that from you in a previous conversation.
Okay. Well,
just so everyone knows.
I stole it from someone else and they stole it from someone else. So who knows who came up with it originally, but thank you to whoever that genius was, because there's millions of us that have stolen it. In any case, I've heard it described as, buckets of life. If you want to view it as a compartmentalization of the amount of hours you get in a week, which is 168. So 168 buckets. I've heard it described, believe it or not, as the pizza of life. Okay, meaning there's a whole pizza, which is your life, and there are various slices of pizza. Now, for some, you don't like pizza, and if that's the case, what is wrong with you? But you don't want all of the pizza slices to be of, drastically different sizes. You want to have relativity, relative uniformity around the size of the pizza slices. And so for me, the one that I like the best is wheels, like the wheel of life. So if you make concentric circles, I'm an engineer, so if you make a circle with a radius of 1 and a radius of 2, all the way out to a radius of 10. So you got 10 concentric circles. And it kind of looks like a tire or anything round. And you were to rate the quality of your results today from 1, meaning very, very poor, couldn't be any worse, to 10, perfect, couldn't be any better. Where would you put that dot, okay, on those concentric circles? And if you had 6, 8, 10 different lines going out to represent the various aspects of your life, well, what if you were an 8 on a couple of different areas of life, and you were a 3 on a couple of areas of life, you're a 1 on one particular area of life, and you think, humbly spoken, you're a 9 or a 10 in one area of life. And then you were to connect all those dots. Well, instead of looking like a circle, right, it would be all flattened and warped, right?
Right.
And the punchline, Evan, is that balanced wheels roll better. I know it's cliche, and some people groan, some people are inspired by that. But if you want to travel through life in a balanced, healthy, productive way that's sustainable, your best bet is to create some semblance of balance. Meaning, if you're a 9 or a 10 in a particular area, but you're a 2 in another area, let's just say in your financial life, you're a 9 or a 10, you're doing very, very well, but in your physicality, your health, your physical health, how in shape you are, you're a 2 or a 3. That's very, very common. Even though I'm an executive coach and I'm coaching the whole person, and more often than not, middle-aged men and women are not in the physical shape that they're in. They might be doing well financially, but they feel unhealthy and they feel strain or stress or angst or worry. They're not going to be there for their family. as long as they want to be. So to be overly simplistic and just to give you an answer to start with, you take some of the time that you have devoted in areas that you're doing very, very well, and you shift them, quite intentionally shift them into areas that you haven't performed so well. And it sounds overly simplistic, but you'd be surprised, or some of your audience would be surprised at how just a simple moving of the slider, so to speak, over to, hey, you know what? I'm going to spend 30 minutes getting my heart rate up every single day. Doesn't mean you have to train for a marathon, you have to become a power lifter, but just you're going to get your heart rate up on a regular basis, 5, 6, 7 times per week. And over time, if you sustain it, you will begin to see different results in your life. And so, when I'm speaking to people, more often than not, they're doing very, very well in their work life because they're workaholics. As you say, many times if you're an entrepreneur, why did you become an entrepreneur? I wanted to become my own boss. Okay, great. So you think before you're an entrepreneur that all of a sudden you're the master of all you survey. You're in charge because you're the boss. The buck stops here. I can do what I want when I want. And then congratulations, you've won a client. You've got a customer in your business, Mr. or Ms. Entrepreneur. Guess what just happened? You're no longer the boss. Technically, you're still the boss of your company, but the customer may not always be right, as the old saying goes, but the customer is always the customer. And there's this realization that happens. Some have it very quickly, others it takes a while. You realize that when you've got 5 clients, 15 clients, 50 clients, 100 clients, you have that many bosses. Metaphorically speaking, I don't mean that literally. And so congratulations, what have you won? You went from being in the corporate world, having a boss, maybe a couple, if you're the dotted line, depending on the organization, to now all of a sudden, for most entrepreneurs, you're chief cook and bottle washer. Right. If you want to speak to your head accountant, your head of legal, your head of marketing, your head of IT, for most entrepreneurs, the only thing you need is a mirror, okay?
Right.
And you're meeting with all of those people because it is in fact you. And there's this feast or famine whatever the word is. You oscillate between feast and famine, meaning you're in business development mode, you win clients, and all of a sudden now you've got deliverables to those clients, depending on what product or services you deliver. Now you're consumed with the delivery to the existing customers, and what suffers? What suffers is the sales and marketing and business development, which will fill the pipeline, the sales pipeline. And so you go from famine to feast. Now you're feasting on the existing work that you've won, but nobody's getting dinner for next month or 6 months from now or a year from now. And so by the time you consume the work that you've already won, you're back to where you were in the first place. And so it's extremely important for people to develop that balance of, regardless of how much work I have on my plate, I must dedicate and devote a certain amount of time to marketing, to get my name out there, to networking, to helping others succeed so that they feel some kinship and some relationship with me that will tend to over time become reciprocal, so that they will think of me when they hear about opportunities that might require my product or service. So I'll stop there, but it begins with setting the intention to be balanced, or to spend more time and attention in a particular area where you're not getting the results that you want. Right.
So let's just think of in terms of a thermostat for this to bring my question. I can set my thermostat And based off of how hot or cold it is, when it's out of balance, it will reset the desired temperature. And that's a good analogy. I just came in this up with the top of my head. So sorry, I'm not normally that smart.
I've heard other people say that as well. So subconsciously you heard that from someone else, but again, they heard it.
Okay, well, subconsciously. Thanks. I just thought I came up with this original idea.
You know what? Maybe they got it from you. Maybe they did.
You know what? Probably. So this idea of the thermostat is, when it starts getting out of balance from where you want, it kicks on. But my question to you is, I don't have the systems. I don't have the programming. I don't have the hardwire, even though I set the good intention to deliver the results that I want. So how do we go about creating that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, as a speaker, I've come up with various models for, how the brain works, how our minds work, and how we can control ourselves. And one of my favorite models is awareness, intentionality, and accountability. But we just spoke about intentionality, setting an intention. But first of all, being aware of what it is your desired state is. What would be ideal? Imagine 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe 3 weeks from now, Evan, you were able to somehow, some way capture this, whatever it is, to give you that balance. Where just effortlessly, you are devoting the time and attention and resources necessary to achieve those results. What would that look like? What would it feel like?
So are we talking about the results or the actions of?
Yeah. So first of all, we're talking about the results. Awareness of the desired results.
Okay.
So there's the picture of the body. There's the picture of the happy family. There's the picture of the bank account. There's the picture of the relationship with in your spiritual or religious life, right? Do the people in your church, in your synagogue, in your spiritual world, do they know who you are? Are you showing up there mentally, physically, spiritually, or are you just paying lip service to it? So first visualize and immerse yourself in the desired outcome.
So let's do this. I'll tell you my desired outcome. We'll just work with this. So financially, I want to be realistically out of debt, but my house or an investment property that I'd like to purchase. I physically would like to be under 200. I'm about 240 right now.
Okay.
And probably have some muscle tone.
Yeah.
In my faith, I would want to have the spiritual relationship with God where I start seeing fruit of that relationship in terms that it's leading others to healing and towards Jesus.
Right.
I would like to see my friendships grow. I'd like to go visit them because that would be a part of the finances to give me the ability to fly over across the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to have more fun. I want to be able to take my wife on a vacation. I want to, surprise my kids with, hey, let's go to Colorado or, some trip. Those are the things that in life, and ideally I would like the podcast to grow to be an author, to become more of a public speaker and go from real estate agent to real estate investor.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So you've painted a wonderful picture. Okay. You've painted a wonderful picture. So I don't know if you've ever heard of something called a vision board.
Yep.
Others call it manifestation maps. But I, long time ago, created a vision board as a result of reading about it in a book. And now I've got vision boards. I've had vision boards for 25 years or more. And I've got a very large vision board right in front of me in my office. And it is an image-centric, in fact, I've got a smaller version of it that I can show you, and without going into great detail, but this is a laminated version of my vision board, which is like poster size up in front of me over here. Okay, but this is just one that I can keep with me. And what it does more than anything, it keeps me mindful of where it is I'm going. And this is
the desired result.
Yeah, my desired outcome, my relationship with God, with my family, with my business, remembering what my roots are, who I want to do business with, the impact that I want to make in this world. Okay? Not the stuff I want to collect, because it's not about the stuff. Okay? So what you've done in talking about the podcast growing, no debt, take your wife on vacation, your family on vacation, the impact of your relationship with God and how you can pour into others, your body, composition. All of these are very real, very tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's your awareness of them. And now here's the part that is just from experience is extremely helpful, or differentiates those who are successful from those who aren't so successful in these kinds of efforts. You've got to narrow it down to 1 or 2 or 3 to be your primary focus for a particular period of time. So there's a cliche or a metaphor, an analogy, that he who chases many rabbits catches none. So if you intend to change everything about you like that, do a U-turn, right? More than likely you will overwhelm your brain. You will be unable to sustain the headwind, because your habits create you. You created your habits, but now what do they say? Your force of, I did that by force of habit. Okay?
Right.
I ask people, fold your arms and look at, which hand is under the bicep and which hand is above the bicep. So just do that. Okay, so pick one that feels most natural in you. Okay?
All right.
Now let your arms go, and now do it the other way. Okay?
I do that. Yeah, that's weird.
Right? And your arms are the same length. So basically what it reveals to most is that your brain has a subroutine called fold your arms or cross your arms. It's the very same way when we get ready in the morning, what we do in the bathroom in terms of deodorant and brushing teeth and brushing your hair and all of these things. This is a routine, a subroutine that we do. The way you drive to work, I know you work out of your home, but when you drive to the grocery store, when you drive to church, when you drive to the kids' school, wherever you're going, if you're going there on a regular basis, you can drive to those places and then drive home without really thinking about it, because you've got an automated process, right? You have a neural pathway in your brain called drive home from wherever you are. And you have that ability. Now, if you're far away, you might need a GPS. But if you're fairly close to where you live, you know how to get there without really thinking about it. Meaning you can think about something else and let your eyes and your brain and the rest of your body just take care of the driving. All that to say what? You have to choose just a few, because if you don't, you are likely to become overwhelmed and discouraged by your short and medium term results. And so pick one, pick the weight, pick the podcast growth, pick, talk to the family about where you want to go on vacation and when. Okay. And a lot of these, they fly in the face of one another. Being financially solvent and have no debt, you might say, hey, guess what? The vacation that we're talking about is a staycation, or it's a vacation where we're not flying somewhere. We're not going to Europe. We're not going to Australia. We're going to somewhere else. And, we're going to go camping 10 miles from where we live, but we're going to have good quality family time, et cetera, et cetera.
Side note, I'm taking a staycation with my family. So my birthday's at the end of the month. In between, sometime around my birthday, we're going to go to a local hotel for one night that has an indoor swimming pool and slide. Nothing fancy, just something
Right.
small, because that's literally about what we can afford on a vacation, and order pizza. So you're absolutely right about, we think about these things and these changes have to be big results, when in reality, this can do just as much good for my family and be a lot less stressful.
Yeah. And it's the message that you send to your family. You talk about relationships, and this is Stephen Covey, relationship bank accounts. Not that it has to be viewed in a transactional way, but it's a nice way that Dr. Covey taught. When you make a deposit in a bank account, a literal financial institution, you see the results. You can see the numbers changing. Well, he draws a parallel between the relationships that we have and how we can make deposits in relationship bank accounts, so to speak. And there's been lots and lots of material written about what people's love languages are, and know your wife's, know your children's, know your parents, your siblings, your friends' love languages. And quite often, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take a lot of money. It doesn't take a lot of time to show how much you mean to them and how much they mean to you, okay? To show that I love you, that I care about you, that I want to be with you, that I'm happy that I'm your husband, I'm happy that I'm your father. It doesn't have to be expensive. It's not about buying gifts. My children are all grown and out of the house and living elsewhere, all in their 20s. One will be 30 next year. So we're gonna enter that world, kids in their 30s. But one of the things that my wife Linda and I derive the most satisfaction from and joy is that we have great relationships with our adult children. We weren't helicopter parents. We weren't absent parents either. They were blessed to have us as parents, and both of us are, we're happily married still. But we were blessed to have them. So we didn't spoil them, but we didn't deprive them either. And that's an extremely, in our Western culture, and in other cultures as well, family connectivity and family support during times of challenge, times of sickness, times of pain, is priceless. It's priceless. It's almost cliche to talk about the successful entrepreneur that has poured everything into his or her business and has become wildly successful from a business standpoint, from a financial standpoint, yet is divorced and alienated from all those people that he or she said they loved. And congratulations, what have you achieved? What have you achieved if instead of living around, in the presence of people who love and care for you and that you love and care for, now you're living a life that it's you and a townhouse and cable television and a nice car maybe, and maybe even a boat, but no sense of fulfillment, no sense of joy. So I want to add one more point. And just recently, there's been a movie about Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. I live in the Pittsburgh market, and Fred Rogers, even though he's a Canadian, the Mr. Rogers neighborhood was shot, in Pittsburgh. And maybe some of you younger folks have never seen it, but if you see the movie, you'll see this caricature of him, that when he comes home to do the show, he has a ritual where he takes off one jacket and puts on a cardigan sweater. He takes off of his work shoes and puts on his indoor shoes. So he has rituals that tell him, and in most people's cases, tells the family that I have in fact come home. And so I'm someone who works out of my home quite often, and I do the very same thing. When I turn my light off and I shut my door to my office, that tells my children when they lived here, and now it tells my wife and even the dog, believe it or not, they know that when I leave my office and shut the light off and close the door, I am metaphorically, I'm driving home, even though I'm taking 5 steps into the kitchen or into the family room. So for you, create some rituals to not only tell your loved ones, but tell yourself that, hey, I'm turning off the phone right now. I'm turning off the phone right now. Why? Because I'm not at work, and anyone that I would want to hear from is already here in this home. We still have a residential phone, which some people don't have. So if the kids needed to reach me, they could by either reaching out to their mother or calling the home phone. So it's just a ritual that helps you to create a gap between this mode, this slice of the pizza of life that I was in, and now I am deliberately moving into another. And now it's time with my sons, time with my wife, time with my family, and that's uninterruptible time.
I really like what you're saying about rituals. When I look at my life and what I'm wanting or the season that I'm in, there was a period of time where I was getting up early in the morning, working out, spending time, like pretty much everything that I desire, I had a system for. And then I got hurt, and then I just kind of got lazy, and it created another pattern, another ritual.
Of course.
And as you're talking, what I'm realizing is if I want to work out, if I want to spend more time with my family, if I want to get some of this stuff done, because my son comes home at 2:30 in the afternoon, and lead generating cold calling does not happen after he gets home because I can't.
Of course.
I can still work paperwork, but what I'm realizing is I have to start my days far earlier than most people. And I don't. I should probably be starting my day around 4:30, 5 o'clock each morning to give me the allowed time to do those things of working out, of daily devotion. But it takes it one step further. So we create these rituals, or what you're saying, the new habits that we want. But it even goes back, what I realize is one step further. It's not just waking up. There's a specific time I have to go to bed, or else the others won't happen.
Of course.
And so in this change of wanting to do or have a different lifestyle, like you said, pick one area of life or two, so that way you don't get flustered by the others, that you're doing too much, chasing too many rabbits. So this is what I just realized in the conversation. If the one area of life I can change, it would be going to bed early. Now, I don't stay up till like 1, 2, 3 in the morning. 10, 11, But if I go to bed at 8:39, then that puts me 7 hours, 8 hours of sleep around 3, 4, 4:30 or somewhere around there, if I'm doing my math correctly off the top of my head.
Sure.
Which then allows me to get up early, which then allows me to have the time spent with God, which also still allows me enough time to go work out, which allows, so that one change opens up more opportunity.
Yeah. So you answered the question I asked you about your desired state. A follow-up question for you and anyone else, and this is for your audience, it challenges you to swim around in that desired state. And why is that important to you? What would it mean to you? What would it mean to the quality of your life? What would it mean to your alignment with your purpose? Why? Simon Sinek, start with why. Start with why. And this is just human nature. He didn't create this phenomenon. He's just exposing it to us. Start with why, meaning with a big enough why. Why can a woman pick up a car that's, trapping her baby? Okay. It's the why. It's, she's properly motivated to do that. Why can we pull an all-nighter in college and get a great result on a final exam or a deliverable at the end of the semester? Because the why is big enough to drive the what. what we have to do. And so for you, swim around in that enough. And then the third word, and maybe is awareness, intentionality, and accountability. Accountability means share it with someone else. Okay? Share it with someone else. You know, put an alarm on your phone that says go to bed. You know, we have alarm clocks. How many people use an alarm clock to go to bed?
Right.
Okay. I use, you know, I can tell you exactly how long we've been on this call. Okay. Because I use these timers and I have them all over the place. Okay. I use these, you know, $10 accountability partners to remind me that, okay, I'm going to do email right now. I'm going to do email twice a day. And I've got, you know, so much time. I'm going to take 27 minutes to do email, or 17 minutes or 10 minutes to do email. So I will set the timer, 10 minutes, hit start. And now I'm going to be laser focused and on task to make sure that I get as much as I can get done in the amount of time that I've allocated. And it's up to me to choose that allocation. It's up to you. So guess what? If I'm going to go to the gym, or if I'm going to work out in my home, guess what? I'm going to give myself 32 minutes. In 32 minutes, I'm going to have exercised, gotten my heart rate up, cleaned off, showered, dressed again, and be ready to go. Okay? What does that mean? No dilly-dallying. Too many people, they go to the gym and they're not working out. They're socializing. And that's procrastinating. So holding yourself accountable, telling other people, right? Having a regular meeting. A big part of what a coach does, what I do for a living, is holding people accountable. You tell me what it is you're going to do, and the next time that we speak, you better know the first question I'm going to ask you is, how many of these tasks did you execute per your commitment? And in most cases, because of the existence of an accountability partner, whether that's someone who is your significant other, your husband or wife, or your boss, or a peer at work, or a coach, you're far more likely to get it done than if you had no accountability partner. Again, whether it's human accountability partner or some system or process where there's an alarm that tells you, hey, stay on task, stay on target. And you know, it helps you to avoid the interruption. When somebody comes to your office and knocks on the door and says, hey, you got a minute? You say, actually, I don't. I'm on a deliverable. That's, again, if it's somebody that you have a pretty good track record with and you know that it's going to be talking about, you know, current events, the impeachment, sporting results, or what have you, that, you know, as important as they might be to the world, for the most part, they don't have any impact on the quality of your life and the quality of your results. And so
Right.
to have a stiff arm associated with people who regularly bring those kinds of things into your consciousness is a healthy strategy.
I like that. You know, talking about the why, and you asked me a question before we got on that we were going to save for the podcast, which is, do you remember what that question was?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead and ask it, because I'm not 100% how to word it like you did.
Yeah, and so, you know, Stephen Covey in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is, if it's not the most, the Bible, yes, but the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, incredibly influential personal development self-help book. And one of those 7 habits is to begin with the end in mind. Begin with the end in mind. And so much of what productivity, training, tools, principles are all about that, right? I asked you, what were your desired states? What would your desired outcomes? And then I asked you to reflect on why. Immerse yourself in the why. Why are we doing that? So that we can get to that point where we desire it more, right? We bite the hook and set the hook. Now we're on a mission to achieve that. So begin with that end in mind, and you're far more likely to persevere through the obstacles that inevitably come up, right? You know, there's this perfect path towards our destination that we imagine, but the reality is it's anything but. And so what I asked you is to reflect on the end of your life, not a project, not a vacation, not a year, but your entire life. And imagine you're sitting on a porch somewhere in a rocking chair. It's my image. You can use it or modify it as you wish.
Mine would be in a cabin by a mountain in front of a lake.
There you go. Okay. And you're sitting there and you know, for whatever reason you know it, just pretend for a minute that today is the last day of your life. And that when you go to sleep tonight, that'll be it. And whatever your faith tells you is on the other side, you know, you're going to have eternity in heaven per my faith practice. And so, you know, we're taught not to be afraid, fear not, be not afraid. We're told hundreds of times to be faith-filled and not afraid. So you got a few hours to sit and reflect on your life. So this is the end. When you do that reflection, and you're thinking about it now, what are going to be your greatest sources of satisfaction, your greatest sources of joy, your greatest sources of pride? There's a healthy level of pride, not excessive pride, where you feel like I was at my best. I ran the race. I did the best I could. And then there are some images, Evan, where you weren't at your best. You're full of regret, remorse, coulda, woulda, shoulda, opportunities you passed up, choices you didn't make, poor choices you did make. And just reflect on that scenario and then ask yourself, what can I do now? And between now and that day, when it comes, and because we don't know the day, to maximize the activities, the actions that I take that will cause me at that time of my life, that last chapter before I close my eyes for the last time, that will bring me a sense of satisfaction, fulfillment, joy, peace, etc. Maximize those. Do the things required to get there. And minimize or eliminate, if possible, the things that I do, the times, the occasions where I don't do the right things. I don't make the courageous choice. And therefore, if I continue to make that a pattern or an element of my life, that when I reach that stage in that metaphorical rocking chair, looking over a lake, then I will still have a portion of my thoughts and feelings be about regret and remorse and sadness and pain.
When I reach the end of my life, I don't want to have fear. And what I realized today is that one reason why I have fear of death is because I don't feel like I've left it all on the field.
Yeah.
And whether that's in my family, my business, it would be a huge regret that there's not more accomplishments or more connection. When I die, and I love the scenario, you know, it's your last day. I would love to have that knowing where I get to sit down and be like, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to come home to heaven, and I have no regrets or things that I need to change. I can just be ready and have left it all in the field and not worry about the wife, not worry about my children, because I've imparted, I've poured, I've done my job. As the words of Bill Belichick, do your job.
So there's another easier way for some people to imagine this. And again, for me, I want to communicate these concepts, which can be deep and high level, or they can be quite simple and easily accessible. And I'd much rather communicate in a simple, easily accessible way than in a complicated way. And, you know, you mentioned, a football coach. Imagine a sporting event that meant a lot to you, whether it's the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, but a sporting event, the final game of the World Cup, soccer, whatever it might be. And for whatever reason, you and a friend were not able to see the event live, but you DVR it, you record it. Before you watch the movie, watch the recording of the event, someone tells you the result, and your team won. And you're really excited by the news, but oh, wait a minute. I'm going to watch the game with my friend. I told my friend I was going to watch the game with him. So you keep the appointment to watch the game. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now you're going to watch this game, which if you were watching it live would be a source of great anxiety, apprehension, depending on what kind of fan you are. Imagine you're a diehard fan.
All the emotions, yeah.
And all the emotions associated with that. But in this particular case, the game has already been played and your team wins. But you don't want to tell your friend because you don't want to spoil it for him. You want him to experience it as if it was live because that's what you initially had attempted or had set up. And sure enough, the game, you're watching the game and your team is getting destroyed. The results look terrible. Okay? And under normal circumstances, you'd be very upset. You'd be distraught. You'd be angry. And your friend is very much that way. And you're having a really hard time being distraught. Why?
Because you know the results.
Because you know the result. But your friend doesn't know that you know the result. And again, some people have said, well, wait, I would tell my friend I knew the result. In reality, I don't think you would, because he would immediately say, well, what is the result? And then what's the point of watching the game? You could make that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Just a metaphor. The point is, we are taught over and over again, be not afraid. Be not afraid. Watching a sporting event where your team wins and getting worried because they're down at the half or down midway through the game is foolishness because you know the result. And depending on your faith, the faith that I practice, the game of life is won by our God, by our Creator. I know what He said. And if I just do my part, do my job, like as Bill Belichick said, who's not God, do my part. There's story after story of people who have messed up big time in life and yet have come to Jesus, who have given their life to God, who have been sincerely remorseful and sorrow for their sins and have worked hard to build the kingdom, to do good, to not sin anymore, and who have achieved the ultimate victory over death, empowered by God. And so to some people, it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, but to many, it's inspiring. And when things are not going well for me, when I have a day where, man, I'm swinging and missing, that's okay. I'm smiling anyway. Why? Because I know who wins the game. And I know that how I perform in every minute of every day is not going to dictate the ultimate outcome.
Mm.
So I could go on and we could do exercises about this, and I do that. But I hope that's enlightening for the audience of this episode.
Yeah, that's so good, because oftentimes we forget that, as a Christian or as a believer, that end result is Jesus wins, Jesus saved, eternity with Him. I was actually reading in 2 Corinthians 5 today, and there's this well-known verse, 5:17. I say well-known, and now I'm having a brain fart on how it says, but it's, you know what, I'm just going to pull. Do you have a Bible right out hand? Because if I get up.
Well, I did not expect to be doing this.
Well, the way I have my pocket, like if I get up, I'm going to have to move everything in front of me, and I have
Okay.
my phone off. So go to 5:17.
Yep. 2 Corinthians 5:17.
Would you read that?
Well, I'd be happy to. Okay, 2 Corinthians 5:17. This means that if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old order has passed away. Now all is new.
Okay. And right there, that's where most messages and most people stop.
Mm-hmm.
Read verse 18 and 19.
Okay. Glasses off. Glasses back on. Okay. So all is new, the end of 17. Verse 18, all this has been done by God, who has reconciled us to himself through Christ and has given us the ministry of reconciliation. Verse
Right.
19, I mean that God in Christ was reconciling the world to himself, not counting men's transgressions against them, and that he has entrusted the message of reconciliation to us. Wow, very powerful.
So there's this part. I'm trying to find it. I turned on my phone now so I can pull it up. Let me find it here. It might be 16. Well, I don't want to take too much time up just trying to, but there's this part in
one of hope, that there is always hope for us. Never be hopeless, that we can be reconciled to him, although we are sinners, although we are imperfect, although we are not the most productive people that we can possibly be. We are not the best version of ourselves at any moment, at every single moment of our lives. But he gets that. He understands that, and he forgives us unconditionally. You're a parent, I'm a parent, and one of the toughest lessons as a parent is how to love unconditionally.
right.
How to love unconditionally. Because if you love someone unconditionally, and yet there's a series of conditions upon which they must behave and comply in order to win your love, well, then you can't say it's unconditional love. You just love them anyway. And your kids are your brothers and sisters in Christ. They're going to make mistakes just like you did. And your love for them cannot waver. If there's some measurement of, some like speedometer, right, of, how much you love your children, well, I've heard it said, you're not as good a parent as you think you are when your children are excelling, and you're not as bad a parent as you might think you are
Right.
when your children are struggling and hitting potholes. And that's so true. And so you just have to love them unconditionally. You might be disappointed at some things, some choices that they've made, and have teachable moments where you must imbue them with your wisdom, not questioning that at all. But your love for them doesn't change whatsoever.
Right.
The point being, Jesus doesn't love us more when we're kicking butt than
Right.
when we're struggling.
I was trying to find it while we were talking, but there's this point in 2 Corinthians 5 where it talks about where our old bodies are gone and our new life has begun, or life has begun. And in context to what you were saying, at the end of your life, how are we going to reflect on it? And, I want to be completely ready and not have any regrets, or, well, I couldn't say any regrets, just leave it all on the field, like you were saying. And what blew my mind today when I was reading that is that, when God talks about life in this passage, he talks about life as in actually life starts at our death, which blew me away because he's talking about our mortal bodies, which groan for new life. And there's this idea that, death is the final stage. Even with an eternal perspective, I'll die, okay, and then I'll go to heaven. But in terms of life, it's going from this struggle to this perfection.
Right.
And so often in our life, we're striving for perfection, and we're never going to get it. I'm never going to be the epitome of what I want to be until after the old is gone and the new has come.
Yeah.
And so even at the end of my life, there's still the perfection to look forward to. But in the terms of how I want to leave my past, and this is what we're talking about, and I'm so grateful that we've had this conversation, because while I want to have the money, the accolades, the financial fitness, or the physical fitness, and all these things, what I realized as you and I were talking, at the end of my life, the most important thing to me, that if these two, or maybe more in the future, things happen, I can say, I've done what I've wanted. And it's to leave a spiritual legacy where my children and my grandchildren will know the Lord. And if I do those things, then I can die a happy man, regardless of anything else.
Yeah, again, Stephen Covey, the 5 L's: live, love, learn, laugh, and leave a legacy. And leave a legacy. That's what we're here to do. To live out the gifts that we've been given, to love others unconditionally. You cannot run out of love. Go ahead, try to prove me wrong. The more you love, the more love you have. To learn, to explore, to learn about yourself, learn about others, learn about the world around you. To laugh, to not take yourself so seriously. Take your work seriously, take your roles, the fact that you're a father, take that seriously, meaning devote the resources necessary to be the best dad you can be.
Right.
Right? So learn and laugh at yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. Recognize that we are nothing, right, compared to the infinite. And leaving a legacy is, once we're gone, right? It's not about our stuff. It's not about what our body looked like. It's not about how many followers we had on Instagram or Twitter. It's not about any of those things. It's about what you taught, what people took away from you. There's another entire thread that we don't have time to go through, but it's really fascinating concept. Write your own eulogy. Write your own. Imagine who's going to say your eulogy, right? One of my brothers, my wife, one of my dear friends is going to be at my funeral a long time from now, and they are going to talk about me. And you've never been to a eulogy or a funeral of someone who was a jerk and closed-minded and didn't love others and was selfish and all of that. Even though those people, they do die, but always the eulogy describes them in very positive ways. So that being said, write your own eulogy. Write what you want to be true before they go have the potato salad and celebrate your life. What do you want when they're all quiet and being mindful and respectful of who you were before you passed on? Write down what you want them to say. And then once you've captured that, go live every day from now until then to make that true, so they don't have to lie.
Right. And before we end the show, I normally ask our guests 3 questions. Okay. I'm going to ask you them real quick. And this could be current or in the past.
Okay.
What in your life, currently or past, has been an area of negative self-talk that you've struggled with?
Oh, without a doubt. So again, it's a long story, but I grew up in South Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm thrilled that I grew up there. There's a very poor place. If you've ever seen Good Will Hunting or The Departed, or you know who Whitey Bulger is, It was a challenging environment. But a very common mindset there was that nothing good came out of South Boston. That it made great gangsters and boxers. And I wasn't going to be a professional boxer, and I didn't want to be a gangster. So that I wasn't going to be good enough. That I wasn't going to be good enough. And if people really knew that I was some kid from Southie, which is what most people call South Boston, that I would be discounted. I would be dismissed. And I had to prove that wrong to myself first before I was able to even embrace it and tell people, hey, that's where I'm from. I'm from the wrong side of the tracks. And I'm actually quite proud of the fact that I grew up there. And I love the fact that I grew up there. It taught me many lessons that I wouldn't have learned if I lived in some affluent community.
Mm.
That's my short answer.
What brings you peace?
Well, now, grandchildren, I've got 2 grandsons, and prior to having grandsons, I didn't realize, before getting married, I didn't realize how much Linda was going to mean to me for my whole life. And now, of course, she does. She means so much. But now having Vincent and Nathan, these little guys that I'm their papa, that brings me enormous peace and joy.
Mm. What's the best decision you've ever made?
Best decision I've ever made is to not lose faith, is to keep practicing my faith. I'm a Christian. And I remember when I went to college, a lot of people that I went to school with were wilding, so to speak. They were, choosing to do things that they would never have been allowed to do if they were living in their parents' home. And probably because I was raised with a very strong faith, a Christian faith, that I made the decision deliberately. Plus, I met a girl who subsequently turned into my wife, whose family was also very faith-filled, and they lived in the town where the school was. So I got to go to church with them and then go to dinner with them after church. So that was a bonus, and that helped me. But clearly, one of the best, if not the best, decisions I've ever made was to stay true to my faith.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Ed, thank you so much for coming onto the show, man. Just appreciated having you. Thank you very much.
No, you're very welcome, and I commend you. This is not a canned, this is not, a cookie cutter podcast, and I'm not criticizing others, but I listen to a lot of podcasts, and some of them are better than others, to say the least. And this was very kind of extemporaneous and kind of went in several different directions. There's a theme, and we talked about what the main subjects were that you had reached out to me for, but it went in very unique ways.
Right.
So I appreciate that. And again, I hope more than anything that it's helpful to your audience.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Take care, and God bless all of you. And Merry Christmas.
You too. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you would, I'd greatly appreciate you subscribing, as well as rating and even leaving us an objective review. It helps us with our ratings and spreading the message of the Whole Person Podcast. And now, may the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace. Thank you guys so much for listening today. Take care, and God bless.